Welcome to The Kitchen Table, a conversation about faith, music, and culture. Join Shine.fm's ministry director Brian McIntyre Utter and his son Jake around the table for this week's chat.
Welcome to The Kitchen Table. My name is Brian.
And I'm Jake.
Thank you so much for tuning in this week. We enjoy having you spend time with us each and every week here on The Kitchen Table. If you're just joining the program, just a little rundown of how this whole thing works. I am Brian, and I am Dad.
And I am Jake, and I am Son.
So we are father and son, and this whole program is about generations and having conversations between generations, especially faith conversations. A couple years ago, Jake went off to college, and we wanted to continue having times to have more faith conversations around the kitchen table, so we decided to do these little conversations and record them for you.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So we spend a few minutes talking about a faith issue, and then we move into a segment that we call Music Matters.
And in Music Matters, Dad and I are both very big music people. Obviously, Dad works in radio. I've played music almost my entire life. So we just like to share new music. And so I bring kind of a song of the week that's impacting me. And then Dad brings a new song because he's got access to that because he's cool like that. And then my dad always does this with my entire life where he brings an oldie but goldie to my life. So he brings an old song from his youth days of his youth.
Not really youth days.
Well, yeah,
I'm going back 20 years this time.
Yeah, because it's
and that's
90s.
not youth. I was not a youth 20 years
90s.
ago. I was younger, but I was not a youth.
Yeah. And that's Music Matters. And then we move into a segment called Culture Shock. And in Culture Shock, we want to shout out the people who are making a difference locally and publicly. You know, we love to see big celebrities who have big platforms to speak, and they're using that platform in the right way. We love to talk about either sports figures, celebrities, artists, anything, but we do love to get the local average Joe Schmo because we live in a community and community is important. So that's why we like to share the community ones especially.
All right, we're going to dive into our faith conversation today. Our faith conversation today, questions and doubts about faith. We all have them. We all have seasons in our life where we're questioning certain things, and those are moments for growth, in my opinion. However, in relationships, a lot of times we don't feel comfortable asking questions out loud about faith.
Yeah.
Today's program is really looking at why silence is not the answer to questions of doubt and faith, and it's time to talk.
Yeah.
A new research study just came out from the Fuller Youth Institute. This is a study that Kara Powell and Stephen Argue were a part of. And it's interesting that one of the parents during one of these interviews as a part of this study said, I think if I were to go back and re-parent, I actually would allow my kids more freedom in their high school years to explore and express their questions about faith.
Yeah.
So as a part of this study, they talked to 500 youth group graduates. So these are kids that grew up in the church. They went to youth group. 70% of high schoolers who were church-going reported having serious doubts about their faith during high school. Less than half of those young people shared their doubts or struggles with an adult or with a friend. So why are we afraid to share when we have questions of doubt?
Well, I mean, we've had a similar discussion on
doubt itself.
On doubt, yeah. And I've always just thought, I don't know, it's a weird underlying rule. I feel like I think it's becoming more aware, obviously, because we have these research articles that are coming out. But I also think that when I'm not old, I'm 2 years out of youth group. But when I was in youth group growing up in the church, you know, I think it was this underlying rule of like, oh, we can't ask the hard questions. Why would you do that?
Did you have a platform to ask those hard questions, though?
I was given it, but I think no one ever took it. I remember like vividly in youth group, we would have like about once every other month, we would have a box and we could just like throw in a piece of paper with a question on it that we had.
And people would not do that?
And it just wasn't taken seriously. It was more like, okay, how do you do dating with a non-Christian person? Which is like a good question, but it wasn't like the serious
deep
doubt
faith
questions.
Stuff. Yeah.
You know? I know I kind of felt guilty to doubt.
Is it like a peer pressure thing? You're in a youth group and everyone's supposed to be good little Christian teenagers,
honestly,
and like, oh, I can't do this, you know, I can't like make this public, you know.
Yeah, I can't, you know, I can't be asking, is God even real? Like, why does this happen? Why do good things happen to bad people? That's the one question I've had throughout high school my entire life.
Everyone has that question.
But it's just, I can't like put a nose on, like a pin on what it was. But it felt like it was an underlying rule to not ask serious, deep, doubting questions.
Well, it's interesting. There's a direct correlation of those who were given the opportunity to express their doubt about their faith. they actually had greater faith maturity because they were given that opportunity. So really, it's not doubt that is toxic to faith, it's silence. The National Study for Youth and Religion says that young people have become inarticulate about their faith. They lack the language to express their beliefs and convictions. But they dug deeper into that, and they said that so have their parents.
Yeah.
So we've grown up, and maybe even I grew up. There was no opportunity to talk about doubts that you have, questions, deep faith questions that you have. Even my parents, we did not have faith conversations per se. I mean, they were very superficial and not digging deep into it. And so I think my generation as well, we grew up not expressing doubt.
And I think, and I'm not like bashing on your generation.
No.
But I'm just saying, I think we learned from that because I think we had this progression because obviously we're getting better because we're having articles written about this and how.
Well, we're trying to just figure it all out.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a process, and that's why it's going to take, sadly, it's going to take generations. I mean, Christians are broken people serving a perfect God.
Yeah.
And so it's going to take a process to understand it is okay to doubt. It is okay to question. Even this past semester, I was in this whole, honestly, all semester, I was in this time of doubt and questioning of what is Christianity? What is, and I think, especially like since I've gotten to college, I've had a lot of conversations about it. Because I mean, college is the first time that you're on your own. And yes, I live closer to home than I went to high school, and it's kind of funny. But for the first time, I don't have to go to our home church. I kind of don't because I travel every weekend. So I have my own faith, and I'm learning how to build that own faith.
Yeah.
And that's caused some doubt. I'm like, do I actually believe, or am I just used to this?
This is a natural process that everyone goes in about your age. They're in college. Their relationship with God and what that is has been connected to the church they grew up in and the influence of their parents. But now, transitioning to adult, you have to figure out your faith and what that is. There's a new term I'm going to throw out. This is a new term, faithing. Faithing is actually the ongoing act of faith. So we're going to talk about faithing. Faithing, you are practicing and you are using it to become deeply a part of who you are. Through faithing, language, behavior, beliefs, and values are internalized. Do you think, I don't know, this is almost like a side question, but I want to ask this question, get your opinion on it. Many youth ministries today are based upon the entertainment model. We have to entertain teenagers in order to get them to come back, to try to give them a little bit of scripture and faith and relationship with Christ. Yeah. Do you think it's become so focused on the entertainment aspect and not going deep enough on the faith aspect?
That's a hard question because...
And that's going to be different from church to church. I understand that.
But it's also like, that's a question for even the church, I feel like. Yeah. Because you want your youth group or your church to grow. And so you want people to be brought in and to like it, but you also want to get deep. Right. And so it's kind of hard because you have these two different levels that you're trying to do, where you have these people that have been going to youth group their entire life. Mm-hmm. For instance, like me and my best friends. But then you have these people who are like, I want to be
new to the whole thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I don't know how how we can solve that, how we can do that, but that's an issue, I feel like, because you don't want to slam these new Christians with, well, is the 7-day creation even 7-day creation?
Right.
And it's just, and I'm not like trying to get into that argument. I'm just saying, for example, like,
we're going to talk about that in a future episode. I'm going to bring in somebody.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, it's a hard balance to find. And I respect youth pastors for that because it's hard. And yes, I do believe that some churches do focus more on the entertainment side. And I think that some churches do focus on the getting deeper side. It's a hard, fine line to find what the balance between it.
What do you think we are afraid of?
Destroying kids' faith.
By giving them the freedom to question?
For example, like for me, I went to one of my first theology, like deep, hard, not like just gen ed theology class.
Right.
Within the first month of class, the prof had brought up, for instance, I don't even remember how it got brought up, but he talked about how Jonah and the whale was just a metaphor.
Oh my goodness. So now you're questioning every story you were told in Sunday school as a kid.
It just made, it was like,
really?
What was
Did you question your entire faith?
Yeah, honestly, I did. Yeah. And he had also said that like there's two creation stories, and that class threw me for a loop.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what's everything? What is everything I learned from VeggieTales just a lie? I get it that it builds your faith.
Right.
But it's also like you have to make sure that you're surrounded by the people that can but help you process those big questions.
Right.
And so I think that youth group, it's okay to have these hard discussions, but also understand that Christianity is a journey. Everybody is on a different walk of life, doing it together. So make sure that the new people have this place. New people, and I don't want to say new and old, but new and consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that they both have a place where they can process, because it's going to rock their world. It's going to help them. I mean, what's the verse that says the testing of your faith produces perseverance, and perseverance produces all this other stuff? It's hard. It's really hard. And so just making sure that youth groups and in churches have this place of processing.
So many established in their faith people, even parents raising kids in the church, they confess that when it comes to discussing spirituality, they're worried that they're going to say the wrong thing. They're going to mess up. They're going to reveal their ignorance. Here's the good news for someone who is having this kind of opportunity to discuss the deep faith stuff. We don't have to be theologians or super Christians to talk about faith. We just need to be willing to go there. When you have these faith discussions, it's just like learning a new language. I learned Spanish when I was 30 years old because we moved to South America.
Yeah.
And when you learn a new language, just like learning this spirituality language and diving deep into it, it's awkward at first. You're going to say the wrong things. You're going to make mistakes. But consistency brings fluency. And that's not only with another language, that is talking about these spiritual things, having these discussions. What can we do? What steps can we take to start opening up and having these conversations? We need to create the spaces for faithing to happen. We're giving this new word, faithing, the act of ongoing faith, ongoing act of faith. We need to create spaces for faithing to happen, which means we're going to have to take some risks.
Yeah.
Questions that you could bring up. What is something you don't believe that you think I still believe? You can answer that if you like. I don't know.
That I
What
don't
is
believe
that you don't believe that you think I still believe? We're not going to spend a long time on it, but that's just an answer. If you want to answer that question, I'm not sure we'll discuss it because that could take this in a completely different direction. Jonah and the whale never happened.
What? No, I don't know, because I don't know if that's true. But right now, I can't say it on air.
Okay.
It's about
we'll have this conversation later.
What? It's just
What is something that you believe that you don't think I believe? There's another question we could ask. Again, don't answer it. One of the questions that we've actually talked about before: when do you feel closest to God? That's a great question to ask. Having these conversations provides one more way to practice faith as a family, faithing. So creating spaces for faithing to happen. Another thing is bringing faithing to their big questions and dilemmas. So encourage your child, your friend, whoever you're having this conversation with, that they need to articulate their doubt so you can better understand what they might be working through. So what happens if you have someone, a friend, a child, who comes to you and says, I don't believe in God anymore? How do you respond? Well, you could respond, tell me about the God you don't believe in anymore. So what you're doing there is you're acknowledging that their confession is courageous. You might say, I don't believe in that kind of God either. So you're going to articulate what you believe. So maybe it's not that they don't believe in God anymore.
It's what this image of God is.
Yeah, exactly. Recognize that questions often are evoked because of new and broadening relationships and experiences, especially when a child goes off to college. Even if it's a Christian college, they are working out their faithing. And they're going to be in classes where they're going to have questions.
I was like, I think Christian colleges are going to be harder than...
Yeah, because the question's not even going to come up if it's not a Christian college many times.
Yeah.
Simplistic faith responses to issues like equality, to science, to politics, they now feel unsatisfying. So acknowledge that there are new complexities. You can invite other people, other adults, to join in on your family conversation. People that will listen, honor, and respond well to the questions. You also want to avoid the either-or solutions. You don't want to constrain to only two options. You want to look at new and creative ways that honor their experiences and their faith journeys. Another important thing is you also want to tell your own faithing story, because your own faithing story is a part of their faithing story as well, either as a parent to a child or a friend to a friend.
Yeah.
So there might be a moment to ask, have you ever wondered why or how I found a connection with Jesus and his story? When you ask that question, guarantee you'll get a yes every time. They want to hear that story. Share how you have experienced God in your daily living, your story. Another one, you want to support your kids, your friends in their unique faith stage. To best grow in faith, we need to develop unique postures that match the key struggles and questions that we will call these different stages. This is from an article I read. There's the learner, there's the explorer, and there's the focuser. These are stages. So as high school students, learners make a sense of faith through the modeling of others. It's parents, could be a youth pastor, could be their friends. That's a learner. Recognize learners highly value what others think. That's why when you're a teenager, you value what your youth pastor says, right? You also want to teach them to seek helpful answers that encourage their maturity. Encourage them to talk to an expert, to read an article, to listen to a podcast. Follow up with them and ask them to teach you what they've discovered. So that's a learner. An explorer, this is like the first half of emerging adulthood. So an explorer could be into college here. They're making sense of their relationship with God by asking more critical questions. And they're often comparing and contrasting what they have been taught by their families and their faith communities in this new encounter with diverse people, experiences, and worldviews. New friends, perhaps new church, new school, new professors that are discussing this if they go to a Christian school. So we can guide through this faithing process by creating room for them to critique what they've learned growing up. And they need people who will be patient with their underdevelopment and sometimes harsh judgments, who can resist becoming defensive if they question things. You want to gently encourage them to not only voice the problems about their family growing up or about their church growing up, but also to reflect on what they have appreciated from that. A focuser. So we've gone through learner, explorer, now a focuser. They're emerging adulthood towards adulthood. So the second half of going into this adulthood process. They're gaining clarity about what they want to do with the rest of their life, about their relationships, and also about their beliefs. You know, you're trying to figure out, what am I going to do with the rest of my life?
Amen.
Right? It's hard for an 18-year-old to figure out, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. That's why I'm going to study this in college. There are more and more students that come into college as undecided, and that's perfectly okay. Or they pick something, but then they change it 2 or 3 times, maybe 6 times.
I'm not 6 yet.
I'm just not mentioning names.
I'm at 4.
But what's happening in this second half, once you figure that out, they're becoming more comfortable with their own relationship with God, and they're searching to find common ground, even though there might be different perspectives. So as a parent of that focuser group, we can help our focuser kids faithing by recognizing that focusers are starting to consider the fingerprint they want to leave on the world. Create space to talk to them about their relationships, vocations, their spirituality. They need mutual conversation, not a teaching session. And then you want to connect them with other adults who maybe have similar passions and aspirations. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
So how do we help others wrestle with their faith? First, you have to check yourself. Your feelings of disappointment to their self-doubt. Check yourself. If it were possible for you to change, especially your kids or your friends, you would have accomplished it already, right? The only person that can truly change is yourself. Pray for that person. Ask God to transform their heart and mind. You also want to lean in. Embrace that person. Rather than seeing their questions and challenges as a divisive threat, model God's love, patience, and grace, both verbally and non-verbally. If you stick with this person, no matter what they're going through, and you remind them that you love them regardless of whether things are good or bad. In a book called Why Christian Kids Rebel by Dr. Tim Kimmel, he suggests that the child's rebellion may not be an isolated problem, but a symptom of something else that's going on. Is your teen struggling with rejection from peers or your church family? Has something else happened that sent your teen into a tailspin? Keep your eyes and ears open for what the deeper issues might be. Well, I just think acknowledging that these phases are happening. These phases are going to happen, and being aware of that. And that's parenting to a kid, that is friend to a friend. They're going through those stages.
I think that especially with high school and Christianity and being the outsider, you want to be the insider, and the insider looks like the rebel child. And so it's really easy to fall into that temptation, speaking from personal experience. But I think that as parents and as mentors of younger students and people, it's important to just appreciate and love them for where they're at in their life right now.
Well, they need more than just knowledge of your faith. They need a relationship with you. So we need to find ways to build bridges to connect instead of digging ditches that drive us further apart. And one of the easiest ways of doing this is finding opportunities that you enjoy together, like watching movies. If they're a creative person, buy them paint brushes. So building those bridges and simply relaxing and having fun gives opportunity then to dig into those deep conversations. The most important thing we can do is simply trust that God is working in their heart, mind, and life, just like he did with you. You're feeling inadequate as a parent or a friend, then you're exactly where you need to be for him to work through you. Continue to cover that person with a ton of prayer as they wrestle through these questions about their faith and their worldview. It's very possible that this is a necessary step in establishing an authentic, in fact, I would say this is a natural step, a necessary step in establishing an authentic and personal relationship with God. By grappling with our faith, we're trying to determine whether our faith is something personal or something canned that they adopted from church, from school, and even from you.
Yeah.
So it's time to stop being silent, and it's time to have those conversations. And that is our faith conversation today.
And now moving into Music Matters.
So Music Matters, a time where we celebrate the generational differences of music. We bring songs that we've found this week or are impacting us this week, and then we dig into an oldie but goldie. So I have a brand new song this week. I think she is probably one of the top female vocalists in music that does not get the recognition she deserves. Blanca. Used to be in the Group One crew. She's now doing a solo career. Had some struggles recently, lost her mother, and so out of that experience, she wrote a song which I just think is an incredible message called Shattered. So she's going to talk about Shattered. We'll hear a short little clip from her after this. It's Blanca, Shattered.
A few years ago, I walked through one of the hardest seasons of my life with my mom. She was battling breast cancer and unfortunately ended up passing away. I remember just feeling completely lost and broken and shattered.
I have seen valleys, the lowest of lows.
Through that pain and through that process, God met me there, and he began to little by little put those pieces back together and show me that I'm stronger than I ever thought I was.
If you shattered, every piece of you that's on the floor, he can restore.
I love Group One crew. I love her solo stuff. It's great.
She's just, seriously,
yeah.
one of the best voices out there.
She's really good. My song for the week, because I don't really do a new one, because I don't have access to all this new music like my father does.
This one's new to me, so it's new probably to most listening.
Yeah. One of my good friends went to a worship conference. My friend's a worship pastor in a church local around here. There was this band that opened. Leland was the lead worship band.
Yeah.
And so Leland had played, but then this other band had opened for them called 11th Hour Worship, and I'd never heard of them. He came back and he's like, dude, you got to listen to this. The drums are sick. He understands that I love drums. And so Evan had showed me 11th Hour Worship, and I really love this one song because the drums, they're great. But it's called Deeper by 11th Hour Worship, and so here's a little snippet of that. I've never heard of them before.
It's really good. Yeah.
He said 11th Hour Worship, and I go, who?
Can I just say, I love the fact that you bring me stuff I've never heard of.
Yeah, because I'm cool like that.
Yeah. You are cool like that. And so we need to listen more to the
No, let's go back in
stuff.
time.
Our oldie but goldie. Man, I'm having a hard time saying this is an oldie but it was 20 years ago. It's the year 2000.
2000.
Yeah. 20 years
I was
ago.
alive.
The year 2000, and this is considered an oldie now.
Is 20 the
ancient.
oldie?
I'm ancient.
Yeah,
yes.
you are. You're 50. You're really old.
But I remember playing this song, and I remember meeting this young gal, because when she started, she was a teenager. And when this song came out, she was a teenager. And we had her in concert years ago, probably 20 years ago, even 21. And her mom was basically traveling with her. She was that young, and had some great conversations with her mom. And she actually, her dad, I believe, is a pastor. Her grandfather was an evangelist in Mexico. Her grandfather, of course, Mexican. Father grew up in Texas and was bilingual. And then when I knew her, she didn't know Spanish at all. She's since learned some. But Jackie Velasquez is her name. Yep. And this is the #1 song from the year 2000. It's called Imagine Me Without You. Give it a listen.
I recognize that name because I was alive when she was playing music.
Yeah,
See,
she's still
I
out there.
like these oldie goldies because it kind of makes me feel like a part of them.
Absolutely. Music does. Music has memory.
But every time you said year 2000, I always wanted you to say year 3000 for my Jonas Brothers fans.
Oh, sorry.
It's a song.
I know it's a song. I vaguely know it. So,
Instead of been to
okay.
year
all right. Thank
3000.
you. Thank you. All right. Let's wrap up Music Matters and go into Culture Shock. Culture Shock, a time where we share about people that are making a difference for the kingdom. I actually have two little stories here that I want to talk about Culture Shock. One is someone who is from music and television. She's probably been in movies too. And
Camp Rock. Come on.
Oh, okay. And the other
We
is
just gave it away, but-
someone local. So, yeah, if you say Camp Rock, they know it's Demi Lovato. Demi struggled with things for the last couple of years. She's been openly and honest about that. Recently read an interview she did she talks about how God gets her through difficult times. And so she's using her platform to really be honest and transparent with people, but also show how God is helping her.
Yeah.
So this is what she had to say. When I'm going through a rough time, I look toward the future for hope to change perspective on things. When I go through something difficult, I stop and think, why is God putting me through this? And sometimes it doesn't make sense in that moment. I honestly think we all feel that way, right?
Yeah.
She wrote a song called Anyone. It was recorded shortly before she had an overdose on drugs in July 2018. She took a 2-year hiatus to what she says to heal, and then came back at the Grammys on Sunday.
It was like this past weekend.
Yeah, and did the song Anyone.
And that was the first time anyone heard it.
Yeah. And so it basically tells of a long time battle with substance abuse and loneliness. The lyrics in part say this: I tried to talk to my piano, I tried to talk to my guitar, talk to my imagination, confided in alcohol. I tried and tried and tried some more, told secrets till my voice was sore, tired of empty conversation 'cause no one hears me anymore. Anyone, please send me anyone. Lord, is there anyone? I need someone. Oh, anyone, please send me anyone. Oh, Lord, is there anyone?
Yeah.
Through all this, she tried to find God through other relationships and substances, but she couldn't find God there. She says he was always at an arm's length and constantly with me. So last fall, she felt a stronger connection to God. She was baptized in the Jordan River last fall. Yeah. She says, I never felt such a sense of spirituality or connection to God, something I've been missing for a few years now. Spirituality is so important to me. To be baptized in the Jordan River, the same place Jesus was baptized, I've never felt more renewed in my life. So she is working through her faith. She is faithing. And we need to pray for her. And she's using her platform and sharing transparency and how God is helping her. I think that's great. That's what Culture Shock is all about.
Yeah.
Okay, the second person I want to talk about. We've mentioned her, I think, on a previous episode because we have a part of the Shine.fm podcast channel, a series called Shine 180. If you've not listened to that series, you need to do that. We got a new one coming out soon. We have one called Shine 180 Miss Pearl. And I want to talk about Miss Pearl because Miss Pearl is a difference maker. Miss Pearl operates a daycare that is absolutely free on the south side of Chicago, and she's been doing it now 25 years.
Yeah.
She gets funding from people, individuals. She doesn't get funding from the state, from the government, federal government, nothing.
No.
Because she shares Jesus to her kids. She has worship time as a part of daycare. I've seen pictures of the kids raising their hands, singing songs. It's unbelievable. She's been doing this because many years ago, her daughter, who was a teenager, came to her with one of her friends who, as a teenager, was expecting a child and knew that when the child was born, she would have to leave school. And Miss Pearl said, no, you're not leaving school. You need your education. And that's how it all started. And so she will take in kids so that parents, teenage parents many times, can stay in school and get their education, can stay and get a job and not have to worry about the cost of housing their kids because they can't afford it with the job that they have. So she's truly making a difference. So we wanted to say thank you to Miss Pearl.
Yeah.
That's what Culture Shock is all about. If you want to hear more of her story, which is an incredibly powerful story, you will grab the tissues, and it's definitely not for children. I'll just give you the warning on that. That is not a podcast to listen to with kids because there's some hard stuff in there from her life. Awesome job that she's doing there, making a difference on the south side of Chicago. Culture Shock, making a difference. That's what it's all about.
And that wraps up this episode of The Kitchen Table. If you want to contact us or just continue on the conversation or share some people that you see making a difference in your local community, you can come on to the Kitchen Table Facebook group. You can find it under the Shine.fm Facebook page, and then there's a little link, a little tab that says The Kitchen Table group. And we just continue on the conversation. We want to hear your faith questions, your music that is impacting you for the week, and your people that you know that is making a difference in your community. And we just want to get to know you guys.
Absolutely. So it's time to talk. Silence doesn't work.
Yeah.
Faithing is a thing. Let's have those conversations. Thanks for listening to The Kitchen Table.
And be salty and lit this week.
Thanks for listening to The Kitchen Table on the Shine.fm podcast network from Olivet Nazarene University. Be sure to subscribe for more content delivered each week on faith, music, and culture.